Well, with a very good week 5 coming up, there's bound to be some big time upsets. Let's see which ones are going to happen.
Let's talk football.
All right, what's going on, everyone? My name is Antonio, and welcome back to the All Around Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Antonio. Today, we are going over my week 5 NFL predictions. Now, normally I would be like hyped up and yelling or like a higher elevated voice. But for now, I am going to keep it mellow because I am currently out on a retreat right now. So I'm going to try to keep it as low and as quick as I possibly can. So here's how I'm going to do this if you are new to my channel. I'm going to go over each individual team's matchups, and then I am going to go over the team that I have picked, and I'm going to let you all know why. So, and then also you can probably see my little girl, Sarabi, right here. It's currently about 7 a.m. where we are. So the girls are still getting their rest. But anyways, but if you guys do enjoy this video, please be sure to do me a favor and smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Also, as a quick reminder, if we do hit 400 subscribers, I will be giving away to the person will receive that gets us to 400 will receive a $25 gift card of their choice, or maybe via Verbo, but we'll see. I'll figure out a way to get it to the person that subscribes for that 100 marker. But for now, let's get into the predictions. So, starting us off, you've got a NFC South rivalry game. You've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going on the road to the ATL to take on the Falcons. Now, so the Bucks, after losing a week ago to the Denver Broncos, or the Donkeys, as I like to call them, they beat down the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, just absolutely decimated their team and just absolutely shut them down, which I did not expect. I thought the Eagles were a better team than this, but with the Eagles, you just never know. They're going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons that got a win last week against the New Orleans Saints without even scoring an offensive touchdown. Pretty much it was their defense doing all the hard work. But this game is going to be interesting because pretty much right now these are the two top dogs of the NFC South. You got the Buccaneers that have an high stack defense with Levante David leading the charge, and also an offense led by Baker Mayfield, going against a Falcons team that has been a big question mark throughout margins of the year. So in this one, I am going to go with the Falcons on this one. I believe with the home field advantage that they will be getting. I just don't think the Buccaneers are going to be ready for this challenge of going on the road against a big time rival. Although I would be happy if I was wrong because I am a huge fan of Baker Mayfield, of what he has done. But until then, I'm going with the Falcons to get the win over the Bucks. And then you've got a matchup between two familiar opponents. One of them is on a different team. You've got the New York Fraudulent Jets going on the road to London to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Jets losing last week to the Denver Broncos, or the Donkeys as I like to call them. They just did not look good. They didn't even score a single touchdown throughout the game. They got beat by a rookie Bo Nix. Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, they're having some chemistry issues. And at this point, it is not looking good for this Jets team. They're going to be taking on one of the two remaining undefeated teams, the Minnesota Vikings, that absolutely demolished the Green Bay Packers that tried to come back, but they just couldn't quite get it done. But this game is going to be interesting because the Jets, they have not looked that great, but at the same time, they have not looked too bad also. Aaron Rodgers is still that bad man, but he needs to get the offense going. Garrett Wilson needs to get going. Alan Lazard, you're not going to have him all the time wide open to throw to. They are going to be taking on the Vikings, which has Sam Darnold. And I said this at the beginning of the season. The Vikings could be one of those sneaky teams. So to other people that said the Vikings are going to be a sleeper, that were going to be a sleeper team, to all the people that did say that, give yourselves a pat on the back because I most certainly did. But in this one, I am going to go with the Vikings because their defense has been the sole leading charge under Brian Flores, and then also along with the Jets just being the Jets. I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is ready to go against a former division rival of his, especially the way that Sam Darnold has been running that offense. And currently, they are on top of the NFC North at the moment. But we'll see what happens when I have the Vikings getting the win over the New York Jets. And then following that, you've got the Carolina Panthers going on the road to Soldier Field to take on the Bears. The Panthers barely at almost winning against the Cincinnati Bengals, which would have been a huge issue for the Bengals. But this Panthers team has changed under the play calling of Andy Dalton. He has truly unlocked this full potential of this offense, and I believe this team has a bright future if they stay with him. But we all know that's not the case because he is getting older every single year. They are going to be taking on the Bears that got their another win last week against a depleted Rams squad. Now, originally I did have the Rams because of the way that Caleb Williams had been looking, but this time, man, this one is just going to be a really good matchup. The Panthers, they have been slowly trying to gain upward, trying to traject up, but I am going to go with the Bears in this one because the Panthers, they are still a huge question mark because if Bryce Young does come back, which is highly unlikely at this point, there is still questions on if he can lead this team. But Andy Dalton is still the quarterback, but I'm going with the Bears to get the win at home against the Carolina Panthers. And then following that, you've got an AFC North rivalry showdown. You've got the Baltimore Ravens going on the road to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Ravens, after absolutely destroying the living heck out of the Buffalo Bills, that were one of the undefeateds that fell that week. But this Ravens team is growing. I think they're trying to get more adapted to the loss of their defensive coordinator that is now the head coach of the Seahawks, which I'll get into in a little bit because I am a Seahawks fan and I'm going to be going over their pick as well. But they are going to be taking on the Bengals that did get their first win of the season against the Carolina Panthers last week. But I still do have my concerns about this Bengals squad. I still have my concerns because you are about to go into a home game where you probably have to win this one because you're going against a division rival in Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But in this one, I am going to go with the Ravens on this one because the Ravens have just looked like the better team for the last 2 weeks, getting their first 2 wins against both the Cowboys and the Bills. This, I just think, is going to be a good game. I do expect it to be close, but in the end, I just see the Ravens getting the win over the Cincinnati Bengals. And then, following that, you've got the Miami Dolphins going on the road to New England to take on the Patriots. The Dolphins, man, are they missing Tua right now. Losing 2 straight games, or actually maybe 3 straight, 2 without Tua. But man, they have gone on one of the worst 3 game losing streaks that we have seen. And I did call the Titans, by the way, for all those that didn't. I called the Titans to get the upset, and I was right. So they are going to be taking on the Patriots that have not been good themselves either. They did get that win week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals, but since then they have lost to the teams like the Seahawks in week 2. They've lost to the Jets on prime time last week, or 2 weeks from last week, and then almost make a close game against the 49ers, which kind of shocked me as well. But this is going to be a really good game. I do expect this to be close. It's going to be a little bit of an ugly game because Jacoby Brissett has not been the quarterback that we have seen in the past when he was with Cleveland. But I am in this case gonna go with the Patriots because the Dolphins, they have shown us that without their main guy in Tua, they are not gonna win games. And until they get him back, this will be the scenario for the Miami Dolphins. And they ain't gonna win without Tua. So in that case, I am gonna go with the Patriots to get the win over the Miami Dolphins. And then following that, you've got a robbery of a great primetime game. You've got the Buffalo Bills going on the road to H-Town to take on the Texans. Man, this game should have been a primetime game. I don't care what anybody else says. This one should have been a primetime game. But the Bills getting absolutely destroyed in their first loss of the season to the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be a great test for the Bills, going on the road into a harsh environment like Houston to take on CJ Stroud and the Texans that did get the win last week on at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Excuse me, in a very tight matchup. This is going to be a really good game, and it'll be the first game that Stephon Diggs has gone against his former quarterback in Josh Allen. This is going to be a really good matchup. This, I believe, is going to be a really close game. It's going to be an offensive shootout between these two sides. I am going to go with the Texans, though. I do think with their offensive talent and the way that they have been playing at home, I do believe they are going to get the win here. But I'm going to go with the Texans to get the win over the Buffalo Bills. And then following that, you've got an AFC South showdown. You've got the Indianapolis Colts going on the road to Duval County to take on the Jags. The Colts last week exposing the heck out of Pittsburgh. And I was waiting for it because I was not sold on their offense. But Joe Flacco once again terrorizing the Pittsburgh Steelers fans to their core. I did have the Steelers picked, but I was lucky. I was happy I was wrong. But they are going to be taking on the Jaguars that have looked atrocious these first 4 weeks, and they need. I just feel that if they don't win this week, they're not gonna even make the playoffs, which is disappointing to me because I believe I did have one of these teams. I think I did have this team in the playoff picture, but I did not know that this was going to happen. And in that case, I am going to go with the Colts to get the win because the Jaguars, they have all the talent there, but Trevor Lawrence, he might have just gotten paid too much because they have just not looked great in this game. But I'm going with the Colts to get the win over the Jags. Then following that, you've got the Cleveland Browns going on the road to the nation's capital to take on the Commanders. The Browns just getting destroyed again to the hands of the Raiders. Just the Deshaun Watson just end the experiment because apparently this is not working for you all. This ain't working for you. They are going to be taking on the Commanders that have just absolutely shown up every single week. Jaden Daniels is looking like that offensive rookie of the year candidate. They are currently sitting on top of the NFC East with the way that the Eagles lost last week and the way that the Giants almost beat the Cowboys last week. This is a big concern around the NFC East, which is probably maybe turning back to its NFC least state. But the Commanders, if they keep up the way they're playing and actually do beat the Cowboys and the Eagles, they might win the NFC East, which would be surprising. But I am going to go with the Commanders in this circumstance because they have just looked amazingly good for the past few weeks. They have just been able to absolutely destroy anyone that gets in their way. But in that case, I'm going to go with the Commanders to get the win over the Browns. And then following that, you've got an AFC West rivalry with some bad blood. You've got the Las Vegas Raiders going on the road 2 Mile High to take on the Broncos, or the Donkeys, as I like to call them. The Raiders finally getting another win against the Cleveland Browns, getting back into their groove, but they had some key injuries out, including the uh, Devontae Adams. It took me a minute to think of his name. He's currently on the trading block right now, and then also along with Max Crosby, that was out. The team was able to step up against a very weak Cleveland Browns team, but the Broncos, they were able to get out a win against the Jets. Which congratulations, Broncos, you got a win. Not like it's gonna happen again. But this is going to be a really good game. I do expect it to be really close because it is a rivalry type game. I am going to go with the Raiders here because the Raiders, they've had their number against the Donkeys for the past few years. They swept them all for last year. They swept them the year before that. This Raiders team has just been the team against the Broncos. And until I see Bo Nix actually be a real opponent, I'm not putting them any higher, but I'm going with the Raiders to get the win over the Donkeys. And then following that, you've got an NFC West showdown. You've got the Arizona Cardinals going on the road to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. This is going to be a really interesting game. The Cardinals, almost getting a win against the Commanders, but just getting absolutely destroyed by Jaden Daniels. And the offense wasn't showing up that much in the second half. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I know he's been making plays, but I still think that Kyler Murray is their guy. They are going to be taking on the 49ers that got another win against the team known as the New England Patriots, finally ending their 2-game losing streak. But they did get George Kittle back, so that is a good sign for them. But this 49ers team, they are still without Christian McCaffrey. We are still waiting to see when he could return, which I'm hoping he doesn't return in week 6 because this team plays them in week 6. But we'll see what happens because the 49ers, I'm not entirely ruling them out because this is going to be a good game. This will be a good game. I do expect it to be close because of the way the Niners have been looking and the way the Cardinals have been looking like somewhat of a sleeper team. I am going to go with the 49ers, though, because they have just not, they need to get this win in order to get themselves back into the NFC West race with a specific team losing last week, which I'll get into here in a little bit in the next two matchups. But I'm going with the Niners over the Cards. And then following that, you've got a great, good rivalry game from the non-divisional standpoint. You've got Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers going on the road to SoFi to take on Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and the Rams. This, oh my goodness, this is going to be a good game because the Packers, they lost last week, getting absolutely destroyed by the Minnesota Vikings in their division rivalry game, which Tom Grossi, a YouTuber I happen to know, calls the Vikings the purple incarnation of Satan. But that's this from what I know. They are going to be taking on the Rams, which lost last week to the Packers division rival, the Bears. The excuse me, the Rams are going to have their work cut out for them because the Packers, they have been looking good, even though they lost last week. They need to show up this week, especially going against a Packers team. But I don't think it's going to happen because of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua being out. In that case, I am going to go with the Packers to get the win over the Rams because the Packers, they are just more stacked than the Rams right now. But if the Packers lose, there might be some questions on if Malik Willis should have stayed in or Jordan Love stayed in. But I'm going to go with the Packers to get the win over the Rams. And then following that, you've got my game of the week. You've got the New York Giants going on the road to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. My Seattle mother loving Seahawks. But the Giants, they're almost coming up with a win. I mean, dang. The way they made it close with the Cowboys was a bit good for the Giants, but it's also a little bit concerning if you're a Cowboys fan, which I'll get into in a second. But the Giants, they are looking somewhat good, but not good at all. But I don't know with this team, okay? I don't know with this team. But the Giants, they could be a really good test. They could be a really good challenge for us. But they are going to be taking on the Seahawks that did lose last week to the hands of the Detroit Lions. Their first loss against the Lions in since 2012. But I'm not entirely upset about this because I feel like this needed to happen. Now, I did have the Seahawks pick to win this game, but I think this needed to happen because of a few reasons. Let me go and look up some stats here, and I'll be back in just a second.
A few moments later.
Now, from what I've got pulled up on my end, I'll show it on your guys' end also. So, the Seahawks had 516 yards of total offense, and they were able to put up 29 points. This, if you're a Seahawks fan like myself, I'm taking away some positives because the Seahawks, they were without four of their best defensive players. Four in Byron Murphy, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, and Leonard Williams. They were still able to make it close with the Detroit Lions. I know it was a 13-point differential, but there's still a lot of positives to take away from this game if you are a Seahawks fan, which is really good news because this game I feel needed to happen for the Seahawks because remember the Lions were getting overconfident after their win against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. They needed to lose to the Seahawks that following week to kind of wake them up. So I think this is our wake up call, and I do believe we are going to get another win against the New York Giants because we have had their number the last few years. But I'm not entirely underestimating this Giants squad because I'm more concerned about Malik Neighbors. That is my highest priority. If you're a Seahawks defender, this guy Malik Neighbors, he needs to be maintained. He needs to be snuffed. You need to get up there in his grill and snuff him. But anyways, I'm gonna go with the Ram. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks to get the win over the New York Giants. And then on Sunday night, you've got a rivalry as old as time. You've got the Dallas Cowboys, took me a minute there, to go on the road to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Cowboys getting out with a close win against the New York Giants, as I had stated earlier. But this Cowboys team is depleted. Dexter Lawrence and Micah Parsons are ruled to be out of this game, which is going to be a huge loss for the Cowboys defense, which has not been impressive at all. They are going to be going on the road to take on the Steelers, a familiar opponent to the Dallas Cowboys because they have met in three Super Bowl matchups. Three. And from what I remember, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, the Steelers took two of the three, from what I know. Hopefully I'm right on this, but I'm not entirely sure. I saw this stat a few years ago, but this is going to be a great game. But the Cowboys, if they are going to win this game, they need to get their defense going. You have to stop the run because the Steelers, they are run heavy. And they were without a few of their best runners. They had to put in backups last week. And this, I just don't, and the Steelers, they lost to the Colts, which I understand because they were putting in backup running backs in Cornell Patterson and then one other guy. I don't remember. I don't know his name. But if the Steelers use their run game to just absolutely run down the Cowboys' throat, they are going to win this game. And I'm going to actually pick the Steelers to win this game. And I've been a little weary on my picks. I've been 2 of 2 this so far for the season on the Steeler picks. So, Steeler fans, if your team wins, you're welcome. Cowboys, if you beat the Steelers, you're welcome also. But I'm going with the Steelers to get the win over the Dallas Cowboys. And then Monday night, you've got an ugly game coming. You've got the New Orleans Saints going on the road to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. Now, the Saints getting absolutely annihilated by the Falcons last week in a close matchup. But the Saints, if they are going to win this game, their defense is going to have to step up, and along with their offense, which they have been doing for somewhat of the time. They are going to be taking on the Chiefs that did lose Rasheed Rice, one of their key pieces to their offense this season. This is going to be a big game for both these teams because it's Tyrann Mathieu's return to Arrowhead Stadium since he was let go to the New Orleans Saints. This is going to be a very interesting game. And because the Chiefs, they may be 4-0, but don't be fooled by their record because they have played 50-50 pretty much all the time. The Mahomes has not looked good. Travis Kelce's spending too much time with Taylor Swift because he's not been on his game. And also their offense alone has not been that productive. And if they are going to win this game, they need to step it up on the offensive side of the ball. And Kelsey, you need to stop hanging out with Taylor Swift, if you ask me, because ever since this whole situation began, you were one of the best tight ends in the league. Now you've absolutely diminished. So get your act together, Travis, or else Taylor Swift might let you go because you're apparently spending too much time with Taylor Swift than you are catching that dang football. But I am going to go with the Chiefs because somehow they are always inevitable, just like Thanos. But I would not be surprised if the Chiefs did lose this game because the Saints, they have shown that they can be a scary team. They destroyed the Cowboys a few weeks ago. But the Chiefs, they need to suffer a loss sooner or later. I think the high answer is sooner, but I'm going with the Chiefs to get the win over the New Orleans Saints. But let me know in the comments what you guys think down in the comment section below. What team do you guys think is going to win their matchup? Let me know down in the comment section below. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you all in the next one. Ciao for now.